Hey, hey, friends. Welcome back to the podcast. I was listening to a podcast the other day. I feel like I say that a lot. That's probably because I ingest a lot of podcasts. It's probably the number one way that I take in information these days because I commute. And my commute is my quiet time. Let's face it, a lot of times it's the only time that I'm alone. And it's time that I have to really listen and ask the Lord what He wants me to you know, to take in. Sometimes it's just for pleasure, let's be honest. But a lot of times I say, okay, God, it's me and you for the next 30 minutes. What do you want me to listen to? And I was listening to this podcast the other day, and one of the people that were on it said just three words: sharpened and shaped. And they caught my attention. And that, friends, sharpened and shaped is what we're going to talk about today because my mind went a swirling, and it was, the thoughts I think are worthy of a full podcast episode, and so, without further ado, let's get after it. Truth time. When's the last time you raised your hands for a swift kick in the pants? Well, I'm the no-nonsense type friend who's going to tell you when you have food in your teeth. So let's get right to it. This is your infusion of sacred and secular, calling you higher into who God created you to be, exploring how intimately faith applies to every part of your life, and how you can live that faith every single day in the marketplace. I felt the tension of separation of church and state. I've been one of the few women at a table of men for decades, and I've stood my ground. Are you ready to do the same? These tools, resources, and interviews are meant to do just that. I'm Jan Touchberry, and it's time to share her faith at work. All right, friends, like I said, sharpened and shaped. That is the focus of the podcast today. Um, I don't know if you have boys in your house or maybe just girls who like medieval weapons. I don't know. But I live with two men, and my husband and my son have this show that they like to watch. It's on the History Channel. It's called Forged in Fire. And it's a competition where they bring in these bladesmiths. If you don't know what a bladesmith is, they make knives and weapons of sorts. And they stand in front of this group of weapons experts, and they are given a very specific thing to make. Some of these things, I mean, some of them is like, okay, make a Bowie knife. Well, I've heard of a Bowie knife, but some of these things are medieval weapons from thousands of years ago that are so obscure. And I'm like, I have never even heard of that thing. But man, these people are excited. And the cool thing is they're given the parameters. They're told how long the blade has to be and what it has to be able to do. And they know that this blade, when it's done, it's going to be put to the test to make sure that it is able to function in the way that it's supposed to. The cool thing is that they all come about this from a different direction, really. They have their own sets of gifts and talents and abilities and their way of doing things, right? Each person does things just a little bit differently. They put their own spin on things. And so you see that in this competition as these people are creating these, what I will call masterpieces, because I could never do it. And it got me thinking when I heard this podcast and she said, we have to be sharpened and shaped. And how true is that? I mean, the process of forging blades mirrors God's work in shaping us. I know you're going, what? What? We always hear, okay, I'm just say it. I think it's a little cliche. Iron sharpens iron, right? We hear the verse spouted in different situations, and we absolutely should, as believers, sharpen each other. Yes. But something that's only sharp is good. You poke your eye out with it. But something that's only sharp is not necessarily going to be able to cut something. And so sharpening and shaping is important for fulfilling, in my mind, what God has set out for you. You can't use a butter knife to cut a T-bone. I mean, you might be able to if you were very persistent, but it's going to take a long time and it's going to be a lot of work and it's not going to be very pretty. And so I want us to really consider how both the sharpening and the shaping is what is necessary for us to really um, be all that God has called us to be. True to form, I've done some research on the forging process. On the show, they have all these different metals that people can choose from, or they can combine different metals, and they create whatever it is that they are set out to create, right? So first they get the metal, right? And then they're going to heat it. And so the heating process, I looked it up and it says that the heating process essentially softens the metal by raising the temperature and making it malleable enough to be shaped and worked with a hammer and other tools, allowing the blacksmith to bend, stretch, or form the metal into the desired shape. I mean, come on, y'all. Does that not sound like what God does in our lives so many times? As usual, I'm going to ground this in some scripture, you guys, so get ready. 1 Peter 1:6-7. In all this, you greatly rejoice, though now for a little while you may have had to suffer griefs of all kinds of trials. These have come so that the proven genuineness of your faith, of greater worth than gold, which perishes, even though refined by fire, may result in praise, glory, and honor when Jesus Christ is revealed. The heating. How many times do we learn from a little heating that has to take place, you guys? I mean, Joseph learned through the heating of his journey from being chosen son to being thrown in prison, then back to the palace. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego in Babylon learned it in very real fiery furnace. And Jesus even had a time of testing in the wilderness. We are refined by these times of testing, of molding. And the key here, I think, in my mind, is that it allows the blacksmith, God, to bend, stretch, or form the metal into the desired shape. This process is crucial for forging as it allows manipulation of the metal without breaking it. You've heard people say that God's not going to give you more than you can handle. That's actually not in the Bible. But what he does say is that he promises to be with us in that process of being in the fire. And I believe that because he is with us and he is constantly molding us, stretching us, and forming us into the desired shape that he has for our lives, he is gracious and he is going to make sure that we don't break. And we have to trust, right? As a business owner, there's almost nothing worse than finding out that the marketing funnel that you've spent so much time thinking through and implementing is broken. The link doesn't work, the form doesn't capture the information the way that it should. God forbid it's linked to an old offer. Oh my goodness. Or maybe your email sequence doesn't trigger correctly. It's horrible to know that you have spent all of that time and effort and energy and you're missing being able to capture the information of people that you could serve that could become your biggest fans and, let's face it, get you some sales. I get it. The pieces of your funnel should work seamlessly together, but sometimes it feels like they're not quite connecting, or they just flat need an overhaul. But you don't have to do that alone. I am offering a new year funnel audit, and this is kind of how it works. First, you're going to fill out an audit application so we can see if this is a good fit for your business and the place that your business is in. Then I'm going to get to work. If you decide that this is something that you want to take advantage of, I'm going to evaluate and dissect and Don't worry, I'm going to try to make this part as kind and as painless as possible, but I will find the holes and I will help you fix them. So if you need more information or you want to get started on that application, you just go to jantouchberry.com/funnel. That's jantouchberry.com/funnel. Get the process started and let's get started making your funnel on point for 2025. Second part of the forging is the hammering or shaping, right? And I think you can see how a lot of times God's discipline, um, nobody likes to think about discipline, right? I mean, but anybody who has had a toddler or a teenager knows that discipline is crucial for the learning process, for us understanding what is good for us, what is bad for us. Um, And in Hebrews chapter 12, specifically, verses 10 through 11, it says, they disciplined us for a little while as they thought best, but God disciplines us for our good, in order that we may share in his holiness. No discipline seems pleasant at the time, but painful. Later on, however, it produces a harvest of righteousness and peace for those who have been trained by it. I look at discipline. I mean, you can think about it from parent to child, but I look at it as a business person. I have to be disciplined to do my bookkeeping. Otherwise, there's pain at the end of that. I have to be disciplined to create my content. I have to be disciplined to sit down to create these podcasts. I have to be disciplined to do my work. All of those things, if they do not take place, there will be pain at the end. And I think the Lord uses discipline and teaching us discipline, sometimes with pain and consequences at the end of it, to again be shaped and molded into what he desires for our lives. Are you seeing the correlation here? I just think, I don't know, God is so gracious and he's just so cool. He's so cool to show me things from 3 words in a podcast and a TV show that, I mean, I find fascinating, but not really my style. After the metal is heated and then it's shaped with a hammer and man, it takes a long time. If you watch the show, really, you should. You just go watch an episode, History Channel. Um, they take it and they pound it with this hammer and these other tools, and then they'll put it back in the fire when it gets cold and hard. And then they bring it back out and they pound it again and pound it again and pound it again. And it goes through this process a lot, like back in the fire, out of the fire, shape, 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 back in the fire, out of the fire, shape, 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 back in the fire, out of the fire. And I feel like until we get to where God needs us to be in order to do what he has set out for us, we're going to be back in the fire, out of the fire to shape, back in the fire, out of the fire to shape, back in the fire, out of the fire to shape. And then finally, the blacksmith does what's called the quenching process. And what this does is the metal has been heated to a very specific high temperature, and it allows that metal to reach a suitable crystalline structure, which then is rapidly cooled. They stick it in this really cold tub of water to lock in those desired properties, typically resulting in increased strength. Essentially, the heating phase prepares the metal for rapid cooling that defines quenching. By creating the necessary phase, transformation takes place within the material. I think quenching is when God calls us to rest and restoration through his presence. We've been through the fire, and he is so kind. He's so kind to call us to a place of rest and restoration after we've been through something hard. And y'all, I'm even going to say, I think he does it sometimes when we're in the hard. One of my favorite verses in the Bible is found in the book of Hosea, chapter 2. And it says, therefore, I am now going to allure her. I will lead her into the wilderness, and there I will speak tenderly to her and I will restore her hope. Um, I just think that's such a beautiful, beautiful picture of what the Lord does inside the times of fire and how he makes sure that we know that we're not alone. In Matthew chapter 11, verses 28 through 30, it says, "Come to me, all you who are weary and burdened, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I'm gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." Thank you, Jesus, for being gracious in the quenching to give us rest. And then after the quenching, grinding and polishing happen. And that is to sand away the rough edges. And I think in our lives, God does that. He sands us and he polishes us to sand away the rough edges to reflect more of his image, what he wants us to be. There's not much use in a dull knife or a dull sword. And the grinding, the sharpening takes place by being up against this grindstone back and forth, and it gets sharper and sharper, and the rough pieces are ground away, ground away, ground away, until finally what the blacksmith has is this beautiful piece of art that they've created. And I feel like a little bit that's probably what the Lord thinks about us, that he's done all this work and he has to heat us and he has to quench us, and then he finally has to sometimes grind away the rough edges. I feel like I'm still in that place at 56 years old, that I'm still in a place where periodically the Lord will say, okay, now we got to work on this. We got to work on this. But in 2 Corinthians 3, it talks about us being transformed into his image with ever increasing glory, which can only come from the Lord, y'all. Only comes from the Lord. And as unpleasant sometimes as the grinding can be and the polishing, they put that blade against leather and they slap it back and forth, and it comes out shiny and beautiful. And I just feel like when you can see how beautiful the Lord is after the process that we go through, because people see him inside of us, that's a gift. That's a gift that he gives us. God sharpens and strengthens us for his purpose. And through all of that, we become resilient through trials. We get strength in our faith and in our character, and we have the ability to impact others with authenticity and wisdom. I wonder what part of the forging process you see God working in your life right now. There's a few that I can see in my own life. And as much as I don't want to welcome the forging process, I know that it's necessary for me to get to the next thing that he has for me. And I think that that's super important. So, one of the cool things is that these experts on this show kind of act as mentors to these bladesmiths that come in, and they are true experts in their fields, and they not only critique, and they provide these critiques that help the contestants improve and grow. And when they go back, so they have iterations of these things that they're trying to make. And so they have phase one and they bring it, and the experts look at it and they say, okay, I see this, 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 and this. And then they can go back and they can improve and they can take that feedback and they can get stronger results the next time they come back. And that's what collaboration does. That's what being in a godly community, especially as Christian businesswomen, that's what that will do for us. Getting feedback, collaborating, getting constructive critiques sometimes, although they can not feel good at the time, they can help us improve if we will take them to heart. In Ecclesiastes 4, it says, two are better than one because they have a good return for their labor. If either of them falls down, one can help the other up. Yes, please. That's the kind of relationship I want with godly businesswomen, that I can learn from them and they can help me grow into the business person that I was created to be. I don't know if you've ever been inside a mastermind or a cohort or a business group of any kind, but I'm telling you, it's changed my business. It's changed my life. They not only see things in my business that I don't see, possibilities and fixes and issues that need to be worked on and changed, but they see other things in my life that are hindering me from being everything as a businesswoman that I'm created to be. And they also can help you through tough seasons. When I first joined the mastermind, with the Live Out Loud community, I had just lost my mom less than a year prior to that. And it was a dark season. But these women, they came around me and they held me up when I needed to be held up, and they pushed me forward when I needed to be pushed forward. And so if you don't have a community, I'm going to encourage you, seek out Christian businesswomen's group or networking groups. Pray for God to reveal a mentor for you or an accountability partner. Be intentional about investing in relationships that God's calling you to, that challenge you and encourage you. Who is in your forge? Are you surrounding yourself with people who challenge and encourage you to grow into who God created you to be? I hope that this episode has made sense. I know that, knives and weapons are not things that you typically associate with Christian businesswomen's podcasts, but I think that the message is a good one. God is the ultimate bladesmith, and he never wastes one moment in the forge. Every strike of the hammer, every spark from fire, all of it is part of his plan to make you into a masterpiece. A masterpiece that actually is able to do the work that he has set out for you to do. And I don't know about you, but that's exciting to me. And I'm excited for you. So spend some time, ask the Lord where you're at in the process and what he's trying to refine in you. Trust him. He's good. He's a good God. And then have faith that at the end of this, what you're going to be is a masterpiece that is prepared to live out everything that God called you to be. See you next time. Thanks for joining me for another episode of Her Faith at Work. If the Lord put someone on your heart that you think needs to hear this message today, will you just smash that share button? And if you haven't already followed the show, I would love for you to do that. Super extra points if you hop over to Apple Podcasts and leave us a review. That helps the algorithm pick us up and drop us right in the AirPods of people that need to hear what the Lord is saying to them today. I hope you'll come back for the next episode of Her Faith at Work. The podcast comes out every Wednesday. And if you look down in the show notes, I've even got a couple of free downloads for you that I think you will really enjoy. With that, have a great week. See you next time.